I want to talk about the trends that we're seeing in the board search market, in particular around remuneration for advisory board members. For many years, advisory board roles were seen as the poor cousin to the non executive director appointments. And with the increasing risk, legislative liability issues that are creeping into the board director market, more and more people come to me and say that they just don't want to take that risk. They don't want to be a non executive director. They don't want to have the fiduciary and legal responsibilities going forward, but they still want to serve and they still want to make a meaningful contribution. And particularly, they want to serve more often than not in the private sector. And so we've seen this rise in advisory board appointments. So a lot more talent wanting to do this kind of work, and organisations are appointing frequently advisory boards to help navigate today's complex business challenges. And the remuneration is incredibly lucrative. So this is a part of our practice that we obviously monitor really closely. I'd say we're the leader in the space in regards to advisory board appointments. We do thousands upon thousands of these each year. We work with private equity, venture capital, family offices, private enterprises, often mandated by the major shareholder, to put in place the A team around these businesses. Now, how does this all get remunerated? Usually it's based on a combination of factors. Certainly, organisations will look at the frequency of the meetings. There will be an element of what is the size, the scale of the organisation that you've got to take into account. And then when you're looking at the A team, you are looking at resources that can obviously deal with very specific, often business challenges. So it might be we're looking for a merger acquisition specialist. We're looking for an individual who can open up into the Asian markets. So the briefs tend to be quite specific to the business challenges that the organisation is facing. And more often than not, they're asking for someone who can come to that organisation and bring really deep specialist knowledge or relationships in that market. And so there is a premium for that type of resource. So we often see these sort of fees sort of start at about the $5,000 mark for a board meeting. It can go up to $10,000 for a board meeting and even more. And we'll often see equity being offered, or we'll often see profit sharing or percentages or bonuses being offered. So it's a lot more liberal in terms of how these offers are put together. They're not just a sort of a stock standard per board meeting fee structure. You'll often find that advisory board members are expected to be quite flexible, and so there may be some cadence around some specific board meetings, but there might be that requirement to attend a meeting with a client or help with a tender or a pitch. And so you might need to be flexible to come together. You may find that there are formal strategy days, or the CEO wants to have regular access to you as that individual is trying to grow a business. So you might find that there's more ad hoc telephone calls or email exchanges during the time. I know myself, I'm an advisor to a number of businesses, and it tends to be pretty ad hoc, particularly during certain phases of that business's journey. So remuneration is attractive, and we certainly see a sort of a baseline of about 60 grand a year, but it can easily go to 100 to 120 a year. And if you are chairing a very substantial organisation, chairing a substantial advisory board, you're going to see that commitment might be higher, and that level of remuneration can be higher. It's not out of the ballpark to be being paid $200,000 a year for advisory board work. So it is lucrative, and so it's very attractive to an individual who maybe has had a successful life, business life, corporate life, and now wants to transition to maybe one or two advisory board seats. Now, I have some clients who work in the family office environment, and they're working with maybe larger private enterprises that have a lot of investee companies, the fee structure in those environments can really be substantial. And I have several clients that work in that family office environment, and they're earning well over the $1 million mark per annum from their fees. A couple of things you do need to watch. You do need to watch that you're never deemed to be a shadow director. So it's very important that you're able to give advice and they can take or leave that advice. And you'd want that contractually, documented in your letter of offer, your contract with the organisation. You want to have a very clear indemnity clause within that contract, which, really makes it clear that you're not in there directing the business, you're not advising on finances and business decisions about loan accounts and financial decisions that would indicate that you're actually really driving an enterprise. So you want to be an advisor, a take or leave advisor, in terms of the advice can be ignored, and you want to be contractually set up appropriately so that you're not deemed to be a shadow director. But to be honest, a lot of people get very hung up on that, but it's not difficult to do, and to make sure that there's those clear demarcations between your role as an advisor and the company's role as the board of directors or the directors in the company, and the decisions that they need to make because they have the fiduciary and the legal responsibility. But I think it's very rewarding work. It can be extremely interesting. There's certainly a big trend on to appoint board directors, and I think it's a good opportunity on both sides of the equation for the businesses and for the executives who serve in this space. So consider advisory board work in the scheme of things. I think it's a very, very valid way to go forward and to keep you involved in the business community.